Hi, my name is Yamini Pandrapagada, and I'm going to show you a pedigree of characters from the show Shameless. So what is a pedigree? A pedigree is a genetic representation of a family that diagrams the inheritance of a trait through several generations. Here is an example to the left. Some important details to remember about pedigrees. A blank square equals unaffected male, a blank circle equals unaffected female, shaded square equals affected male, shaded circle equals affected female. The trait that was important to the show was bipolar disorder. It's a dominant trait if you don't have the disorder, and it is a recessive trait if you do have it. So here's the pedigree of the Gallagher family. Monica and Frank are married, and Monica has bipolar disorder, and her 5 kids don't have the disorder, neither do her grandchildren. Monica also had a child with her other husband, and their son, Ian, has a bipolar. So after seeing the pedigree, we have to ask ourselves, which mode of inheritance is this pedigree consistent with? Keep in mind, there is more than one right answer. Let's start with Y-linked. The shaded trait has to be on the Y chromosome, and in this case it's not, since Monica has the trait. And females have 2 X chromosomes and no Y chromosomes, so that's inconsistent. X-linked dominant, so that means if it's shaded, then it must have the dominant allele. If this is the case, then all the male children get the Y chromosome from father Frank, and X chromosome with dominant allele from their mother Monica, and would likely end up with bipolar. But this is not the case since none of them are shaded, so this is inconsistent. X-linked recessive, so that means if it's shaded, then it must have the recessive allele. If this is the case, then all the male children get the Y chromosome from their father and X chromosome with the recessive allele from their mother, and would likely still have bipolar, but that is once again not the case, so this is also inconsistent. Autosomal dominant. So if it's autosomal, we don't have to worry about the sex of individual. So if it's shaded, then it must have the dominant allele. If not, then you must have the recessive allele. Since Monica is big B little b and Frank is little b, their children can end up with the recessive trait little b, because Monica can give a little b and Frank can give a little b, and not end up bipolar. Monica and Clayton, though, Monica has big B and Clayton has little b, and Ian can end up with a big B from Monica and little b from Clayton and get the bipolar trait, so this mode is consistent with the pedigree. Autosomal recessive. So if it's shaded, then it must have the recessive allele. If not, then you must have the dominant allele. If Monica's little b, and Frank has the dominant allele, then their children can end up with the dominant trait, since Frank can give the dominant allele, and so the children would not end up being bipolar. And when Monica is with Clayton, Clayton has the dominant allele, but Clayton could give a little b, and Monica could give a little b, and Ian can still end up being bipolar, so this mode is also consistent with the pedigree. Here are my citations, and thank you for listening to my presentation.